Dit daol, Learn Cornish podcast you hemma. Heddiw ni ra cwsel a dro the Amser Dremenys. Hi all, this is Learn Cornish podcast and today we're going to talk about the past tense. I'm going to go through the imperfect and preterite of bows to be, gul to do or to make, mynnes to want, and gallos to be able to. I'm grabbing this right out of the KDL course. It's lesson 4 of grade 2, which is lesson 29 overall. You know by now that there are two forms of the verb bows, the short form and the long form. The short form is used to describe nouns with adjectives, usually, and the long form is used when saying verbs. So the short form in English would be a sentence like, the cat is black, or the house is green. And then the long form would be, I am sitting, or you are talking. Those are present tense examples. The equivalent past tense examples would be, the cat was black, the house was green, I was sitting, you were talking. Now I'll go through the conjugations of those in the past tense. So for the short form, for I, in the present tense, it's of the. In the past tense, the imperfect tense, it's NV. So that's EN. For you were, which in the present tense of Cornish you are, would be osta. In the imperfect is esta. He, she, it was would be o, he or ev. For we were, it would be n, ni. So that's spelt the same again as NV. So for n-ni, it would be en space ni. And then for you were would be uch, hui. And uch is spelt EWGH. And then they were would be ens, e. Ens is spelled ENS. So that was the short form. In the long form, it's all the same, but with ES in front of all of those. So I will go through them all together. SNV, SS, ta, ESA, he or ev, ASEN, ni, ASUCH, hui, ASENS, e. With ASA, meaning he was or she was or there was, there's no alternative form of the verb for a definite or indefinite noun. So there's no equivalent of uzi and urs. It's just esa for all cases. And remember, to conjugate this in the normal way, you'd put ith in front of all of those. So there were would be ithesa. I forgot to mention before that the long form is also used to describe things in places in space and time. So if I wanted to say she is in Truro, that would be ima hi in Truro. If I wanted to say she was in Truro, this would be ith esa hi in Truro. If I want to turn that into a question, in the present tense, I would say uzi hi in Truro. For the past tense, it would just be esa hi in Truro. And then to answer the question, in the present it'd be uzi imahi intruru. Or to answer negatively, nag uzi, nins uzi hi intruru. But in the past tense, it's just always esa, conveniently. So if I wanted to say, was she in Truro? That would be esa hi in Truro. And to answer, I'd say esa hi in Truro. Or nag esa, nins esa hi in Truro. I'll go through some more examples now. Esta in coffee day? Were you in the cafe yesterday? Esen. Ithesen v in coffee day? Yep, I was in the cafe yesterday. Esu hui oath on vethwi ni huer? Were you getting drunk last night? Nag esen. Nins esen ni oath on vethwi ni huer? No, we weren't getting drunk last night. Well, per uchel uch hui. Well, you were very loud. Very loud is per uchel, and that comes before you were. So the sentence is, well, very loud you were. Or very loud were you, as a more literal translation. Metho NV. I was drunk. Ninzes metho. You were not drunk. Notice I missed out the ta because that's optional. Per tha oev. He was very good. Per tha en ni inwaith. We were very good too. Tolis enzi. They were deluded. Ithes enzi go lavero. They were lying. As you've just heard, you can use the long form of bows with the present participle to make the imperfect tense. And remember that you can use the long form of bows with some nouns to make expressions like ithesa juans them, which would mean I wanted. I do have more about this in the feelings episode. Using gull is a great way to conjugate other verbs in the past tense without having to learn their forms in the past tense. In the same way you'd say miara kuzel Kernuic, which would mean I do speak Cornish. You could also say miarug kuzel Kernuic, I did speak Cornish, or miare kuzel Kernuic, I used to speak Cornish. So in these cases, saying miarug means I did, and that's the perfect tense or the preterite tense. So I did speak Cornish, that would be like yesterday I did speak Cornish. Miare is the imperfect, so that's I used to speak Cornish, as in I don't speak Cornish anymore. I'm going to go through all of the imperfect conjugations of gull, but be aware that they all start with G in the unmutated form, but most of the time that you use them, they will be mutated, which means they will not have the G on them. So, gren v, gres ta, grey he or ev, gren ni, gruch hui, grens e. You can either say mi a re followed by an infinitive verb to say I used to do something, or you can conjugate gul for each subject. So if you wanted to say I used to write, you'd say I ren fi skrifa. You used to write. I res ta skrifa. He or she used to write. I re he or ev skrifa. We used to write. I ren ni skrifa. You plural used to write. I ruch hui skrifa. They used to write. I rens I skrifa. Gul in the preterite form is as follows. Grug, ev, grusis, ta, grug, ev or he, grusin, ni, grusoch, hui, grusons, I. And the way that you'd conjugate this in the easy way would be miarug skrifa, say I did write. And that would be I did write as one completed action in the past. Say, I did write yesterday. Miarug skrifa day. Or you did write would be ti arug skrifa. Or alternatively, I rusis ta skrifa, which also means you did write. Something I didn't talk through earlier was the preterite of bows. So this would be used if you wanted to say I was, but not in the sense of I used to, more as a completed action, like I was excited yesterday, or I was tired this morning. I'm going to read out the conjugations. They all begin with be, but remember, they're mostly going to come after second mutations or after words that cause second mutations. So the be is going to mutate to a v in most sentences. Anyway, we have bev, v, bus, ta, be, he or ev, burn, ni, and that's spelled B-E-U-N, buch, hui, that's B-E-W-G-H, bonds, E, B-O-N-S. So, I was tired this morning would be I vi squeeth heddiw vitin. You were late yesterday. I fys ta diwethers day. He was ill last night. I fy ef clav ni hywer. I fyn ni, we were. I fywch hui, you were. I vons I, they were. It's easier though to just use mi ave, ti ave, and that has the same meaning as conjugating it for each subject with I at the beginning. So I could say mi ave squeeth ni hywer. I was tired last night. I'm not an expert in Cornish, if you can't tell, but I think that most of the time when conjugating bows or when using bows in the past tense, you would use the imperfect form rather than the preterite. I've certainly worked and read the imperfect much more than the preterite. Now let's talk about two more verbs that you can't get around by using gul. These are mynnes, to wish or to want, and gallos, to be able to. So for mynnes, the most common way of saying I wanted, you wanted, etc. is to say mia vinnas or tia vinnas, etc. That is the preterite form in the third person singular mutated. So the original is mynnes with an M, mutates to a V. But I'm going to go through all of the conjugations so that you know what they are. So I'll go through the preterite first this time. This is not the imperfect, so you use this if you want to say I wanted as a complete action. I wanted this at some singular defined point in the past. So let's go through them. Mynnes, so that's spelt M-Y-N-N-I-S, and that's the V form. Mynnes, M-Y-N-N-S-Y-S, ta. Mynnas, M-Y-N-N-A-S, ev or he. Mynsin, M-Y-N-N-S-Y-N, ni. Mynsough, M-Y-N-N-S-O-W-G-H, hui. Mynsons, M-Y-N-N-S-O-N-S-E. And remember, the M will mutate to a V in most forms of this verb. So if I wanted to say, we wanted apples yesterday, you could say that by I vinsini avalo day. But you could also say ni vinas avalo day. I vinis vi, I wanted. I vinsis ta, you wanted. I vinas ev, or he or she wanted. I vinsin ni, we wanted. I vinsoch hui, you wanted. I vinsons I, they wanted. And now the imperfect. Minen vi, mines ta, minna ev he, minen ni, minuch hui, minens e. You might notice that the I and we forms are both minen and they're spelt the same, M-Y-N-N-E-N. You might also remember that I'm supposed to be saying both of the N's, but I'm not very good at it. So it should be minnen. Or you can, if you struggle with that, you can replace the first N with a D. Say midnen. And that's one of my workarounds to pronouncing double N's. And my workaround for a double M is to replace the first M with a B. So like hebma, which means this. Back to this verb. If I want to say they used to want, that would be I vinens I. I used to want, I vinen vi. We used to want, I vinen ni. You used to want, I vinuch hui. You singular used to want, I vinnes ta. I'm going to go through gallos now, and then I will go through examples of all of the verbs that I've talked about today. So, gallos, I'll talk through the imperfect first. Gillen vi, gillis, ta, gilli, ev, he, gillin, ni, gilluch, hui, gillens, e. And remember, most of the time that you use these will mutate, which means that you lose the G at the beginning. And now the preterite, gillis, vi, gilsis, ta, gallos, ev, he, gilsin, ni, gilsoch, hui, galsons, e. So most of the time with this verb, if you are saying I was able to or I could in the past tense, you'd probably mostly want to use the imperfect, because if you were saying I was able to do something, you usually mean it in the sense that you used to be able to do something and you can't anymore. There are times where you'd use the preterite, where you'd want to say, I could do this yesterday, but I can't today. But that's a less common use. So for the imperfect, you'd mostly be using gilli, Gylli, in the form mi a illi, or ti a illi, he a illi, ev a illi, ni a illi, hui a illi, e a illi. The preterite forms can be conjugated e illis vi, I could, e ilsis ta, you could, e alas ev, he, she could, e ilsin ni, we could, e ilsoch, hui, you plural could, e alsons, e, they could. As I've said, the shortcut to learning all of these is just learn the third person singular and use the mia form, etc. So for to be able to, which I've just gone through, it'd be mi a illi, etc. And this would be followed by the infinitive of the verb. So I could dance would be mi a illi dansja. You could hear ti a illi clujes. Although for that one, it might be better to use the preterite. So that would be ti a alas clujes, as here might be a more completed action rather than something you used to be able to do. So remember, mi a illi, I used to be able to. Mi a alas, I could. Back to mynnes, if I want to say, I used to want to dance, that would be mia vinna dansja. If I want to say, I wanted to dance, mia vinnas dansja. So remember, mia vinna, I used to want to, mia vinnas, I wanted to. And now back to gull. The shortcut for this is you just say mia rug followed by any verb to say I did that thing. Mia rug nervia, I swam. And if you wanted to say I used to swim or I did used to swim, that would be mia re nervia, where mia re means I used to, or I used to do, or I did used to, and mia rug means I did, or just the prefix for putting another verb in the past tense. For bows, there's a shortcut for the preterite. You can say mia ve, tia ve, ev he ave, etc. And this means I was, or I have been. And you can also use this to form the passive tense. So I was seen is mia ve gwellis. Gwellis is in a neutral past tense conjugation, which I'm not going to go into here. For the imperfect conjugation of bows, there is no shortcut. You can't say mia and follow it with the third person singular, so you have to just learn them all. I'll finish this there. If you want to re-listen to any part of these, then you'll have to just rewind. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you at the next podcast. Farewellers.